views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
And hello, welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Daren Jaime. Today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough as well as across New York City. Coming up on today's show, we'll discuss the increased resignation rates throughout the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and what this actually means moving forward. Then afterwards, we'll talk about how one organization is helping society's most vulnerable children. We'll give you some more details a little later on in the show. Also, we'll learn how an organization celebrating and supporting the people behind America's food culture. Then finally, we'll speak with the wellness coordinator at WHEDco on the importance of health and wellness in the South Bronx. So stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Open. I am Daren Jaime, and of course, we thank you for joining us. Today is Wednesday, January the 12th, and you're watching Open, a live and interactive program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to your TV sets. We also want to welcome our viewers on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, as Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on the MNN channel. Now, we invite you, please stay connected to us, and how can you do that? Well, you got two ways. One is you can always check us out on our social media platforms at BronxNet TV, and then also on our website at bronxnet.org. Well, some things have been going on through the course of the past week. We'll take you through a couple of them with our Bronx updates. And we start off with housing news. The tenant advocates from Community Action for Safe Apartments joined new settlement and state lawmakers outside Bronx Housing Court calling for the governor to extend the moratorium when it comes to housing. Our BronxNet reporter, Arlene McCoco, was there, and she brings us the details right now.
Tenant advocates from Community Action for Safe Apartments joined new settlement and state lawmakers outside Bronx Housing Court, calling on Governor Hochul to protect the rights of renters as the moratorium on eviction set for January 15th draws near.
Me and my colleagues in government, especially my colleagues from the Bronx, are fighting for every penny to make sure that people in this county are not evicted, especially during this crisis.
Assemblymember Kenny Burgos from the 85th District says it's renters and owners alike that need support for funding created to assist those impacted by COVID-19, called Emergency Rental Assistance Program, or ERAP.
We're going to fight to extend the eviction moratorium, and we are going to fight to put more money in ERAP and keep all of you and all of our Bronxites and all of our New Yorkers in their houses with their families, especially during the holidays.
With 250,000 statewide that stand to be impacted, Randy Dillard, a leader with Community Action for Safe Apartments, says 40% of them are from the Bronx.
This is a problem throughout the country. It's not just a New York problem. You don't hear about tenants in France, Germany, Russia during the pandemic. Why are we hearing about tenants over here getting ready to face eviction in the United States, and we're supposed to be the greatest country in the world?
I lost my job during the pandemic. I worked at a restaurant. I helped to prep the food.
Among the tenants rallying, Anna Galvez from Mont Haven, who is hoping for some relief as she waits for the economy to reopen.
I was actually one of the first workers to be let go, and now the restaurant itself is closed now.
Also supporting Casa, Rigo Noel, executive director of New Settlement.
The Bronx still has the highest unemployment rate in the 5 boroughs. And so now is not the time to throw people out on the street during the winter.
On the Grand Concourse, Arlene McCoco for BronxNet.
And thank you, Arlene. You've been pretty busy because you also were working on another story that deals with Metro North commuter trains. If you're transferring from a Metro North commuter train in the Bronx to a New York City bus or subway, well, that could also be free. Arlene gives us more on this right now.
Transferring from the Metro North commuter train in the Bronx to a New York City subway or bus in the borough could soon be free if the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee gets its way.
What this will do, it would allow them to have this freedom ticket so that, at least for now, off-peak hours, they can have that reduced fare and they could transfer from the train to the bus. And so this reduced fare is fair, and we want the MTA to not only do this, but also to expand it.
Joining them was Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr., Bronx Borough President-elect Vanessa Gibson, and other leaders there to promote what they are calling Freedom Ticket, a proposal for Bronx strap hangers that mimics a similar program in Southeast Queens called the Atlantic Ticket, allowing Queens residents to take the LIRR to experience faster service.
As a member of the New York City Council, I stood with my colleagues in Southeast Queens who were advocating for transportation access by way of the LIRR and the Metro North. And so it's no secret that as we talk about supporting access in one part of the city, we should also do the same for the borough of the Bronx. So, for example, any commuters getting off a Metro North train will not have to pay an extra fare if they have to take a bus or a subway to their destination.
It's about equity. It's about making sure that everybody throughout the city has the same opportunity to ride at the same fare.
There's no reason why people who live in Connecticut or in other states outside of New York have a faster commute and a proportionally more accessible commute to New York City than people who live right here within the city, right here in the Bronx.
With the recent allocation of funding through the federal infrastructure bill signed into law by President Joe Biden, bringing $500 million to the PIN Access program that includes the construction of 4 station stops in the East Bronx, approving Freedom Tickets makes sense.
Anything less, in my opinion, during this Christmas season would be the equivalent of putting lumps of coals in the stocking of the people of the Bronx. And we will never, ever accept that.
So Freedom Tickets is not up for a vote or discussion at this month's MTA board hearing. However, transit advocates here are confident that given the success in Queens, that it will soon come to the Bronx. For BronxNet, this is Arlene Makoko.
And thank you, Arlene. That is all the time we have for our Bronx updates. And we want to let you know, we want you to stay connected to us. We are opening up the rest of the show coming up after this break.
If you're struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit, or call toll-free at 833-511-0311. That's 833-511-0311.
And welcome back to the show. Several trends that we saw the year 2021 will follow us into the new year. Resignation rates are at the highest among mid-career level jobs and those in the technology and healthcare industries, with more rules on returning back to work now coming in place, including mandated vaccinations. Many employees are considering working from home. The question is remote work actually here to stay? And joining us now to share more is the founding partner of the Boyd Law Group. We're pleased to have Patrick J. Boyd with us. And Patrick, again, good to have you and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well.
I guess the question is right off the top, we know that there is a change. A lot of people are very happy about staying home. But is this a thing that we will see carrying on through the future?
Well, Daren, I think it's an interesting question without an easy answer, right? The longer that the pandemic and the variants of the pandemic have an impact on the safety of work, I think the longer remote work is going to be a trend and may move from a trend to an actual sort of standard for the workplace. You'll see some employers, including Adobe, for example, has decided to make remote work an option. In other words, some people can apply for a job for only remote work, if you will. Some other employers have been very aggressive in trying to get employees back and have been struggling with that, because once they say you must be back, then there's been another outbreak and they've had to require people to stay home anyways. Just as an example, just today, I believe American Express decided to go hybrid because of concerns about the new variant. So I think the answer is for sure that remote work is here to stay for some employers, but whether it's here to stay for all of them or not is something we're going to have to wait and see on. It's going to be determined by the future of the variant and maybe the future of worker interest and employers' willingness to understand that people can work hard and efficiently from home.
What are we hearing legally as far as cases when you talk about employees who have may thought about resigning from their job, given the fact that you've got this variant out there? There are people who say, listen, I don't feel comfortable going back to work. My job has forced me to go back to work. Are we hearing a rise in cases of employees taking employers to court?
I think it's too early to know how far people are going to take the fight. Because the court process is so slow, right? But for sure, we get calls from clients every week about concerns of returning to work for really one of two concerns. Number one, they're concerned about their health, of course, and maybe they have a condition that makes them less comfortable with taking the vaccine. I've even talked to clients whose doctors have told them not to take the vaccine given their conditions, right? And then number two, those people who have these religious objections. There's aspects to the vaccine that were created or founded based upon stem cells and things from fetuses, and they have that religious objection. The courts and the law do recognize that if you have this religious good faith basis for objecting to the vaccine, you have a right to argue about whether or not you want to take the vaccine. And then, of course, those two groups of people have that argument that, well, I don't want to take the vaccine because of my medical condition, or I don't want to take it because of my religion, and I can still do my job remotely. So why don't you accommodate these concerns I have and allow me to work remote? We don't have a lot of great rulings on it from the court yet because it's so new. But if your question is whether the conflict is out there, the answer is absolutely. And I think we're gonna hear some argument about it, hopefully in a productive way in the months and years to come.
When you talk about a court ruling, we do know the Supreme Court has voted to uphold mandatory vaccinations. How big a win is that for those in support?
Well, so just to be clear, the Sixth Circuit ruling was in December, allowing these mandated vaccines from Biden, right? And then the Supreme Court is hearing yet another argument on this subject on the 7th of January, right? And we have a conservative court. So the question is going to be whether or not Biden's mandate, which impacts a certain number of employers, is going to be enforceable. That mandate is to either require employees to be vaccinated or to have weekly testing. The Supreme Court will hear oral arguments on that on Friday, and that ruling will only impact a certain number of workers. But I do think what the court says and how the court opines may impact what other employers choose to do. That is, they don't have to follow the ruling because the ruling is really about whether Biden has the power to do this, right? But what they rule in terms of Biden's power is likely to have an impact on what a lot of other private sector employers choose to do.
Yeah. I want to talk about some other legislation that's coming into effect in the year 2022, one being the whistleblower. That law goes into effect. Talk to us about what the law actually means and what can we expect?
Sure. Yeah. So very, very exciting for those of us who are practitioners in the field. New York has been behind the times in protecting whistleblowers for a while now. A lot of other states, including New Jersey, just as an example, have had a whistleblower law on the books. This law will now enable employees who see things that are unlawful in their workplace to be able to speak out about it and to know that if they speak out about it, they can't be fired, or to be more clear, if they're fired, they're going to have a powerful legal claim. So a protection that they didn't once have, they will now have. The hope is that will mean all of the employees out there will become greater advocates for a fairer, more lawful set of employer practices and policies, because they know that if they speak out about something they think is wrong, they'll be protected in doing so. That law goes into effect in the end of this month of 2022. So will impact things for years to come, and is just coming to us in this new year.
Any particular reason why New York is so late in the game, given the fact that so many other states have already adopted this policy?
To talk about the legislative history would be to say that we've been trying to get this passed for a long time. I think the employers have a powerful argument and a powerful lobby as to wanting to keep New York functional and have argued that this is an impediment to successful business practices. I also think that the reality is that the law existed, right, but was not precise enough to give employees protection. It used to say that employees could complain, and I'm simplifying here, but it used to say that employees could complain, but they were only going to be protected from firing if they were right about the unlawful act they suspected to be seeing. So they had to know for sure that something was wrong. And what that really resulted in was a chilling effect, right? Employees weren't going to speak out if they weren't positive that the employer was cooking the books. They weren't going to speak out if they weren't positive that the employer wasn't honoring the regulations specifically. They didn't want to deal with the risk of being wrong. So now that good faith suspicion is enough to give them protection. That's the new change in the law. And I think the employers used to be arguing, well, no, the law is good enough as it is. Not really. Now we have a right, good standard, more consistent with other states' law protecting whistleblowers, which I think we should all be happy about, from employers and employees, quite frankly, because the right employers are doing it right and should be rewarded with success. It's the wrong employers who should have to account to their employees for not doing things correctly.
Share with me your thoughts as we enter the 2022 from a legal perspective. I know there's some new changes that are coming on, but as far as the court system and the Omicron virus now being prevalent, a lot of people are going to have to really take a further delay in having their cases heard.
Yeah, I think that's true. The whole legal process is I think it's remarkable how many judges have embraced, understood, and started to do the Zoom meetings for things, which really results in a lot of attorneys not waiting in hallways, but getting their cases called, heard, and efficiently. It took some time, but at least for New York, I think we can be proud of how the court system has adapted and changed and got to be more efficient. But there's going to be a backlog there, right? And so matters are moving along now, and they're moving along well. But matters have been sitting for some time, and it's going to take a while for the court system to get up to processing sort of the older cases. I think the speed is now here, but the old backlog is going to take a while to clear, no matter how we do things.
As a lawyer, what are you looking forward to seeing come through the pipe in the year 2022? Are there some things that are more advantageous in your favor?
Well, I think the best part about this that we can all take some hopefulness away from is that a lot of employees had a chance to reevaluate their jobs and their role of their jobs in their lives during the course of the pandemic. People got a chance to stay at home. People got a chance to see their family, their friends. People got a chance to reevaluate their jobs and whether they liked them and whether they found them rewarding or not. One of the things that you mentioned in the beginning was the statistic that a lot of Great Resignation were not just brand new workers, but people who had been in their jobs for a long period of time already. I think that's an indication that people who had stable jobs nevertheless have taken this time during the pandemic to evaluate their satisfaction with that job and whether they felt they were aligned with the mission of that job, and maybe to reconsider it and find a better job if they weren't as content with it as they might have been. Right now, in addition, we've got a staggering number of job openings, right? So employers are going to be in a position to be selective about the jobs they take on because of all these openings. And maybe we'll be interviewing for the jobs they want, jobs that aren't, quite frankly, not just jobs, but careers or missions, which I think can be really great if we find people working in places that give them pleasure, where they feel like they can contribute in a way that they feel good about when they leave. So for my hopeful sense, that's what I'm hoping this great shift might have led to.
Yeah, but I also anticipated is the fact of what we are looking forward to ahead when it comes to supply chain and demand. And I was with someone recently trying to buy a car. The gentleman told the car salesman, said, listen, if you're trying to buy a car, now is not the best time to buy a car. First of all, there are too many cars. There's a car shortage. Second of all, in addition to there being a car shortage, the price range is just not even conducive to being able to. It's not pretty much a buyer's market anymore. You've got
Right.
you've got a bad situation, and so talk to us a little bit about what you anticipate coming down the pike, because yeah, there's a lot that's going to play out in people, and a lot that's going to play out across the country.
Yeah, well, I think that's the other side to the coin, right? There's lots of job openings, but lots of employers who aren't quite sure how many employees they're going to need if their businesses aren't going to be open because of the variant, or if their businesses are not going to have, to your example, cars to sell because there's not a supply out there. So I think that it's quite possible that you're right. The opportunities are available in concept, but that it might take months or even a fiscal quarter or two to find out whether those opportunities are really going to manifest in actual job openings, actual choices about where to work and how to find a good job, and a stabler economy with a stabler social life as a result, right? I think it's going to take some time, and there's a lot in flux. Hopefully we shuffle the deck and we come back better and stronger, but how long it takes to come back better and stronger is a very important question that I don't think anybody has an answer to.
Give me an answer to this one. Have you heard anything? I was talking with a couple of friends who were also lawyers, and they said, Daren, there's a possibility that as we come out of this pandemic, particularly in the courtroom, that you may be able to see going forward what they call virtual judges, which will be a permanent virtual judge, and that will be a way to actually help to mitigate cases. A person doesn't have to actually come into the courtroom, but actually have these virtual cases going forward far beyond when we get past this. Have you heard that? And if you have, what have you thought about it?
I've heard a little bit of talk about that. My thought is that we need good, smart women and men in rows deciding cases, and each case has a personal aspect where we need a good heart and brain evaluating it. What I have seen as a trend, which I think is useful, is that a lot of these judges hire very bright men and women to be clerks, and those clerks are able to provide a valuable service in procedural arguments, and even in spending extra time with litigants who can only spend a certain limited amount of time in front of a judge. And so I've had several cases where I get on and the judge is available, but the clerk talks to me instead and talks to opposing counsel instead for a period of time. And honestly, they're bright. They help, and ultimately they'll go run to the judge to get final approval on something if they need to. So you still have the authority of the judge and the court. But these clerks have been very adaptable, very useful. The courts were already starting to use them, but in this virtual setting, a clerk can maybe deal with 10 cases in the same time they could have dealt with 5. And so I think that's part of it. These are often, young law school graduates and people who are training with judges before going out to be practicing attorneys. So I'm not a big fan of the robo-judge concept, although I've heard it talked about, but I do think the virtual setting and the ability of clerks to be more involved has been a good development, adding to the efficiency of the process.
We certainly will continue to follow this and a whole lot more. Patrick Boyd, thank you so much for joining us and filling us in as we begin 2022 from a legal perspective. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. Happy New Year again.
Well, thank you, Patrick. A lot to look forward to in 2022. Now, for more information, we encourage you to visit his website at theboydlawgroup.com, and then also follow him on Instagram and Twitter at Boyd Law Group. Well, we got more show. Don't go anywhere. Open is continuing coming up right after this. Welcome back to the show. The Children's Village works in partnership with families to help society's most vulnerable children so that they can become educationally proficient, as well as economically productive and socially responsible members of our society. And they believe that there are three keys to a child's success: one is education, two is work, and three, lifelong relationships. Here now and sharing more details, we're pleased to be joined by the director of the Children's Village Institute, Vincent Madera. And Vincent, good to have you.
A pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's get right into it. And when we talk about Children's Village, we know that you guys have been doing some great work with children and families down through the years. And as you look into this new year, coming fresh out of the holidays, give us a little bit of the holidays and where you are in the new year with Children's Village.
So we are at CV. We love the holiday season, obviously, just because this is the time where we can offer opportunities for kids just to be kids, right? And families just to be families and not worry about the stress of what got them into foster care in the first place. And so what we do is to make sure that we provide every single opportunity possible for kids to be with their families during the holiday season and just doing what everybody else does in the holidays, opening up gifts, eating, breaking bread, and making sure that just for a split second, it could be hours or a weekend or a day, they really get away from the stress and just enjoy each other as family.
And as they enjoy each other as family, I know that's the bond that you really want to create, that, kids can be a part and families can also have this connection of really bonding together. As you look with the work with Children's Village, give us a little bit about this, because as I said in the intro, part of what you're trying to develop is lifelong relationships.
Absolutely. So what we know is that no matter what we offer at Children's Village, right? And I'll speak for Children's Village. We could offer amazing things in terms of, Broadway tickets or a beautiful place to stay in our residential. And there's one thing that we would never be good at, and that's being a child's family. And so what's important is, and what we knew what was important for the success of a child's life is to be connected to family and have those lifelong connections. And that's why we can't be a child's family, is because we're not lifelong. The way the work is we have an age limit to the services we provide. Family does not. So when we realized that, we did everything we can and started putting money where our mouth is to make sure that we start building and fostering opportunities for those bonds to happen with the children's family. And what's beautiful is family is whoever the child deems as family. Right? We don't say this is your mother, this is your father. What we say is, who are you connected to? And let's foster opportunity for that connection to get stronger and everlasting.
When you talk about foster and families, let me put those two words together, because that's also what you do. You have a great foster care program. Share with us a little bit about the program and the success that it's had in really being able to bridge the gap in a young person's life.
Absolutely. So we have our family foster care program, where what we are doing now, and we're actually in the middle of the shift, and it's extremely exciting, is understanding that there needs to be bridges built between what we don't call them foster families anymore. What we call them is caregivers, because the children already have families. So we bridged what used to be called foster families. We call them caregivers to the family, and it's a team of support for the child. Right? That understanding that the child doesn't have to choose between a great relationship they have with their caregiver and their biological family, or the family that they were with prior to being in care. What it is no, now you have a team of support. So how can we first drive that message home to both the caregiver and the family, as well as the child, see it in tangible ways? May it be making sure that, okay, Monday through Friday, you're with your caregiver, then you could go home on the weekends, and then lead that into what we are, which is our number one goal: reunification with the family, and still have the relationship with the caregiver even after they leave care, which I think is the best of both worlds.
Yeah. For yourself, talk to us about, we talked in the last segment with our legal counsel about what it's like to navigate the system, given the fact you've got Omicron, the Delta variant, COVID. Talk to us about what it's been like for you guys as far as staff, trying to navigate, and then the relationship of maintaining families and doing the work that you do. How is the, how has this recent things really been affecting you?
So it is a lot. So what we do know though, and it goes back to what we value, right? What we do know is how did we, though the individuals who work with these children and families, how do we get through the stress of COVID and Corona, right? And that is through connections, the connections that we have. So it's the same way our families and kids need to get, that we work with, need to get through it. More connection, more time, more time together, and in creative ways. So that's really what it was, is how can we be more creative in the ways we do it, while now with COVID, keeping everyone safe. So what we did was, if you don't have to come into the office, we reduced the number of people in the office so we don't expose the kids that cannot come home for whatever reason. But the people that are still working with the kids, we're calling families every day. We're FaceTiming families so they can get that face-to-face. We're validating that it is not the same thing as hugging your mom or dad, right? And saying that this is not, we don't want to continue this. We're going to look at for every way possible that we stop that. And so what we've done was, if the family can take the youth for a long period of time, especially if school was remote, why don't we do it at home then? So they don't have to stay in a residential or foster care setting. And so for those specific situations, we send the kid home for a longer stay so they could be with their family. And what do we see? The bond got bigger, right? No incidents happened because they're with family and they used each other to get through the stress of COVID and Corona.
Yeah, I want to have you hear a little bit about what's going on at Dobbs Ferry. I'm familiar with Dobbs Ferry because I used to go up there to play basketball years ago. I'm going to date myself, being up there at Children's Village, playing up there at Dobbs Ferry. But talk to us about the work that's going on up there at Dobbs Ferry.
So I've also played basketball here at Dobbs Ferry, and I just tore my meniscus doing it. So,
really? Oh man!
Wow. Yeah. So you just caused a little trauma. Don't worry, we have enough clinicians here to help me through this after this interview. So in Dobbs Ferry, we are still holding on the values of the family bonds, right? But also showing the youth that keeping them engaged as much as possible, right? With this understanding that we're going to do everything we can for you to get home, for you to see your family. And so what we offer is, we have a beautiful recreation site here with Olympic-sized pool. You should come back. If I don't know how long ago you played here since you dated yourself. We got a brand new gym. We just did the floors. And we also try to do as much as we can in inviting families to share in that. With Omarion, it's been quite difficult. But again, we're keeping them engaged to distract them as much as possible from the stress, but doing everything we can to foster the opportunity for them to get home to see their family, even if it's for an hour, just to see them.
Yeah, it's been a minute. I'll date myself and say it's been at least 35 years since I've been up there playing on that court. But I definitely want to look forward to seeing what's going on there. And I know the great work that goes on between yourself and staff, and how you really make the lives of young people so much more better, and the impact that you guys have. So no, thank you so much. Vincent, before we go, you want to let anybody know about some things that you might be having coming up in 2022?
No, we're continuing to make sure that our families feel like partners in the work that we do, rather than just a service that's given to them and that they didn't choose. Because that is true. They didn't choose to have our services. However, we want to make sure that they feel like partners in their goals and accomplishing their goals of being unified with their kids. It's going to go hard.
Vincent Madera, director of the Children's Village Institute. We want to thank you so much for being with us here on Open. Now, for more information, we encourage you, go ahead and visit the website at childrensvillage.org. And then you can also follow them on Twitter at Children's Village. We got more show. Don't go anywhere. Open continues coming up after this. And welcome back to the show. The James Beard Foundation is an organization whose mission is to celebrate and support the people behind America's food culture and champion a standard of good food anchored in talent, equity, as well as sustainability. Over the decades, the foundation has actually evolved from a body of celebrating gastronomy to a change maker and a thought leader driving impact across the industry. We're pleased now to be joined on the show to share more details, the Vice President of Programs at the James Beard Foundation, Ann E. McBride. And Ann, thank you for being with us. And for those who may not know, share with us a little bit more about the mission of the Beard Foundation.
Thank you for having me, Daren. It's such a pleasure to be with you this morning. So the foundation has, as you mentioned, celebrated the restaurant industry for a very long time, independent restaurants. And a lot of the work we're doing is supporting the industry with programs around advocacy, for example, around leadership. We have a big scholarship program that helps people really from the very beginning of their career to the point where they're award-winning chefs and restaurateurs. We support them. Same thing with writers, and we also do, we have a fellows program that supports young chefs and culinarians at the beginning of their career. We have a Taste America series of dinners throughout the country where people get exposed to chefs who are supporting, who are also championing the same standard as us in terms of equity, sustainability, for example, in partnerships. So that's part of our more public-facing elements also. So we cover industry, we help present the industry to the public in a way that helps them understand better the challenges that chefs face, especially these days.
And when we talk about challenges, I want to talk a little bit about food insecurity, if you could help us, because the work that you're doing is amidst the food insecurity crisis here in the state and really across the nation. How have you been able to address the issue of food insecurity and still be able to do the work that you do?
So a lot of what we do around food insecurity is in training chefs, if you want, on how to be better advocates for their community. So for example, around food insecurity, what should you know around upcoming legislation? How do you talk to your representatives, for example? What training do you need in policy advocacy to then really help strengthen your community around that? Obviously, chefs are very generous and always trying to support their communities in general. So how can we help give a bigger reach to their work, a bigger platform to their work is another way in which we can help strengthen their community around food insecurity. And then something that is perhaps less obvious, but so many minimum wage workers are food insecure themselves. So by advocating for better conditions for the industry, whether it's wages, whether it's benefits, all of that, it also hopefully leads to less food insecurity, period, in the restaurant industry.
And so for people who may not know, give us a little bit about the work that's going on to really address this amongst your organization, because I know that you do a great job with chefs and really getting them impacted for where we are today. But share with us a little bit more about that.
So our Open for Good campaign is something that we unfortunately had to start in spring 2020 when the industry really shut down. And amidst the COVID crisis, amidst all of the crises, and especially now also, continuing inequity in the industry and everywhere, amidst rising costs for chefs, that's something that is just insurmountable at the moment when your restaurants can barely be open. So some of the resources that we provide there are everything from advocacy for the industry to a virtual education library where people can watch seminars that we've done, webinars that we've done, functioning as resources, functioning as a network. We do a lot of promotion of other educational resources also, of partners that we have. We work with organizations like IRC or ROAR in terms of helping expand their programs and their reach. We've done a lot of fundraising for I'm blanking on the name of the fund at the moment, but dispersing of funds to independent restaurateurs who really needed it and did not have access. Our Black and Indigenous fund, for example, a lot of Black and Indigenous restaurateurs, chefs and restaurateurs did not get access to some of the federal help because they were too small or got there too late. And the big restaurant groups had swiped up a lot of the money. So we created a fund where we could give them money and they could apply for things like that, for example. So it goes from resources, educational resources, to tangible amounts of money that people can access through us to help them survive this really insane period.
Yeah, you talked about a lot of work that you do. I forgot to mention, give us a little on the Women's Leadership Program.
Indeed. So that's a program that we started in 2017, and we just started a new partnership with Cornell University. So the 2021 cohort of this Women Entrepreneurial Leadership Program that just started this fall is in partnership with Cornell. We work with women who have existing businesses, and it's about growing their businesses. You need at least 1 or 2 units for this particular one. And the training that you receive over 10 weeks is on strategic thinking, positioning, articulating your vision, presenting it to potential investors, marketing, how to structure your finances, what conversations should you have with lawyers and accountants, etc. And at the end of that, they present a project that is around their articulation of their vision for growth for the future. So that is really the anchor of our women leadership programs. Before COVID, we did other programs also around the country. We did a little bit of that virtually. And in the next year, we'll continue to build, to expand what we do with this Women Entrepreneurial Leadership Program that reaches 20 women at a time to get to hundreds of women at a time through the work that we do.
So for people who want to participate in being of assistance to the program and being a part, how can they do that?
Our website always has a lot of updated information on everything that we're doing. We have newsletters also for consumers who might be watching. We have our Beard Bites newsletter that keeps people updated on what we're doing for consumer-facing elements. For the industry, we have an industry support newsletter. So for any chefs watching, sign up for that and you'll get information about anything that we're doing, application periods for our next round of fellows, for our next round of Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership Program, any other funds that we might be launching, and those kind of things. So I encourage people to visit jamesbeard.org and sign up for resources, and also follow up on social media where they'll get a lot of updated information there too.
Share me a little bit about the success that you've seen through the program, and particularly working with chefs and the impact that it's actually been able to have on communities.
Indeed. So on the Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership Program, for example, we have very tangible measures that we can see in terms of women able to raise anything from 75,000 to 1.2 million for their businesses upon completion of the program, for example. People who participate in our Chefs Boot Camp, who then become much more confident talking to their their representatives, and then become involved in politics locally. So to your point about community, if as a chef you can understand your power and you can use it beyond cooking for your community, but if you run for city council, for example, if you really understand that as a chef, you function as an intermediary in so many cases. You are the translator of information. You are the translator of information that comes from politicians, from farmers, from sustainability experts, nutrition experts, all of that. And you become such an ambassador for your community and for the people who may not necessarily have the trust of the public, right? I mean, the government is not necessarily who has the trust of the public. The chef, where you go and have dinner every night or every week, whatever, can become the person who represents you and helps you better understand the other side as well.
Amazing. And so, as you look forward to 2022, what excites you the most about the work that you're going to be doing?
Really continuing to build on a very strong basis that we have. I mean, this, the work that the foundation has been doing for all these years, but in particular since 2020, of refining our mission around more equity, more sustainability, and culinary excellence, and how we define culinary excellence. In a way, we're a startup with a 30-year history. So continuing to build on these programs, continuing to work with partners who represent the same values than us, the same mission, and then really getting the industry to a better place and supporting the chefs and the business owners who are as committed as we are to making the industry better, more equitable, more sustainable for all, and getting out of this mess.
Yeah, we are looking forward to really getting out of it. But I want to thank you for the work that you're doing, and also for letting us know a little bit more about the James Beard Foundation. Annie McBride, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Daren.
Oh, great. And we want to let you know, for our viewers, if you want more information, please don't hesitate. Visit their website at jamesbeard.org. Also follow them on social media at social media at Beard Foundation. We encourage you, please don't go anywhere. Stay with us. Open continues in a few. And welcome back to the show. WHEDco is a community development organization founded on the radically simple idea that all people deserve healthy, vibrant communities. Now, WHEDco's opened a fitness center for residents at one of our locations in the Bronx Commons. And joining us now to share is a little bit more information. We've got the WHEDco Wellness Coordinator, Damian Alexander. And Damian, glad to have you with us here on Open. And it's got to be an exciting time having a new fitness center at the Bronx Commons.
It absolutely is. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And so talk to us a little bit about the fitness center and what people can expect if they come through.
So the fitness center here at Bronx Commons comes at a crucial time when people need a physical and mental distraction from COVID-19. The center is fully equipped thanks to our partnership with Peloton and LISC. We officially opened the center on December 6th. The center is open 7 days a week to residents of Bronx Commons ages 18 and up. We've been running some live classes as well, conditioning, walking, running, yoga, meditation. So trying to bring the whole spectrum of health and wellness into a living community.
Yeah. And we know that this is the time of year right now where everybody's getting excited. They've talked about their New Year's resolutions, what we're going to do, how we're going to get started, but sometimes it's really hard just to get started. You can have it here in the mind, but when it comes to really working it out, it doesn't always work out. How does the person get started if they're really moving from resolution to reality?
You know, I got to say, it's to be acknowledged that for a lot of folks who really need movement and mobility in their lives. There's so many other things going on that can feel a bit overwhelming and daunting all at the same time, while still necessary. And I would first, like I said, I acknowledge that. And I also say, don't feel overwhelmed, and that you can work, these small things into your already existing activities. For instance, I'd say, if you're traveling from work to home and you have a train stop or a bus stop that you usually get off at, maybe get off the stop before and walk those blocks, and try and find, even if it's, the first thing you do in the morning, if you can give yourself, even if it's a minute, for some people, 5 minutes is a luxury of time to have. But even if it's a minute to just drop into silence, stillness, and meditation, that can even be a way to jumpstart, mind-body connection to wellness.
Yeah. Diet and exercise are always so important that we hear about it. The importance of having a balanced diet, the importance of exercising. But for somebody who may need to hear it again, give us a little bit more about the impact that it actually has on a person's day-to-day life.
It's particularly important for residents of Bronx Commons who, we're in the county that ranks dead last in New York State for health outcomes. The Melrose area of the Bronx is considered a food swamp, which is an area with high density of establishments selling high caloric foods and junk foods relative to healthier food options. Here at Bronx Commons, we actually have a rooftop garden, and a farm manager who came into the building to show folks another option, a different alternative to what we may be used to. I've heard many of my colleagues, fitness experts, who say diet, what you eat, what you drink, what you intake, even on an esoteric level, is about 75% of your outcome. What you put in the body, how you fuel yourself. If I'm fueling my body with quote unquote junk food more than I am with healthy foods, that has a long-term effect on the body. In the same way that salts, fats, carbs has a detrimental effect in the long run, vegetables, healthy foods have a great outcome in the long run.
I know for a lot of people, this is the time of year where they do some reevaluating. Really, it's the beginning of the year, but a lot of this reevaluation stems from the fact that we've picked up some weight, we've done so, gained some weight during this COVID-19 pandemic, and whether it's staying at home and eating a whole lot more. What advice do you have for people who really are trying to just overcome this? Because there's got to be some alternatives to just staying at home, binge watching television, and then putting something in the mouth.
I gently suggest to move away from resolutions, because it can be, you can feel defeated if you don't achieve this resolution. And as opposed to having a resolution, have a plan, and I always say start small. I would first off consider speaking to a health professional to see where you are, to get, a baseline. And then from that baseline, you can move forward. Just start slow, show up, and set short-term goals that can lead into long-term goals. Almost, if I want to run a spring 5K, I'm super active in the running community here in New York, and a lot of the 5K races kick off in the spring. And if I'm setting a goal to say, hey, I want to walk a 5K, you have a date and you work backwards. So you say, all right, this spring 5K is March 20, whatever. You plan out 8 weeks in advance that every other day I'm going to get up and I'm going to move. And again, like I said, it doesn't have to be a sprint. It can be small incremental steps to get to that goal, but you have to get up and start moving.
There's a link to between when we talk about mental health and exercise, and how exercise really could be a great asset to those who are struggling in the area of mental health. Can you help make the correlation for some of our viewers who may not know the correlation that's there between mental health and exercise?
Absolutely. Some people may think of physical and mental health separately, but they are connected. Mental health can positively affect your physical health, and in return, poor mental health can negatively affect your physical Studies have found that, positive psychological well-being can reduce the risk of heart attacks and strokes, for example. And that's not to brush aside or not acknowledge that mental health is an issue for many of us in the community. And I think COVID kind of ripped the Band-Aid off of that in a good way to bring it to the forefront in conversation. And so, the self-images that we have of ourselves, which is a mental thing, kind of plays out into what we eat. There are people who talk about, there's that phrase, I eat my feelings. That's a real thing, and it's something to be acknowledged. And so if we start to remember the two go hand in hand, then while we work on our external, we still need to do the internal work as well.
So for people who want to find out about getting connected to the fitness activities that are taking place over at Bronx Commons, tell people what exactly is available and what are the amenities that people can take part in.
Well, Bronx Commons Fitness Center is an amenity for the residents of Bronx Commons. But moving forward, we will be doing community-based out-facing fitness activities. We are on social media, so you can follow us. And I'm always available for conversation.
Yeah. I want to ask you, well, let me have this conversation with you about meditation, because I understand that you're a person that practices meditation. So talk to me about the benefits of it and how can a person really think about getting involved in that?
I think the first thing I like to say when I speak about meditation is to not overthink it. It can feel so, again, daunting, overwhelming. I don't know how to sit, the thoughts come up. And there's something that a meditation teacher taught me a long time ago, was that as opposed to trying to push everything out and silence the noise, meditation is still about coming inside, and being grounded. And so I always tell people, try and find a comfortable seat. It doesn't necessarily have to be a cross-legged seat, because that can be uncomfortable for some folks. You can sit up on a pillow, you can sit in a chair. And again, if you're just starting, maybe set a timer on your phone, smart device. And even if that timer is 60 seconds or 90 seconds, you can sit still, you can quiet the body, then you start to quiet the mind, tap into the breath, and you're meditating. It's so accessible to everybody.
Something that maybe some people will definitely consider in the year 2022 as a way to navigate and deal with this pandemic and the things that we're actually dealing with. Damien, I want to thank you so much for being with us and sharing with us some much needed tips. And I want to tell people also that they can get some more information. That can go to WHEDco.org to be able to find out more about the work that Damien has got going on over there at the Bronx Commons. And then we also encourage you to follow them on Twitter and Instagram at WHEDco Speaks. Damien, again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All righty. Thank you, Damien. I want to let you know, now, listen, for more information, you know what to do. Go ahead to WHEDco.org. Now, I want to let you know we come to the end of our show today. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us, and most of all, you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, don't forget you can catch the Recablecast on Bronx's Channel 67. Also, if you want to find out more, it's also on Verizon Fios. That will be Channel 2133, or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. Now, if you want a brand new episode of Open, I encourage you, come back on Friday morning. My girl, Rita Valentine, will bring you the best of arts and entertainment. Until then, I'm Daren Jaime saying take care. God bless. You've been watching Wednesday Open. Keep this channel wide open.